There are two types of views in a tabular model. One of them is the table or grid view, and the other is the relationship or diagram view. In the lower right of the work area are icons to access these views. The table view is where you edit a dimension or fact table. The view is similar to Excel with columns and rows. The columns can be added to with the computed values like full name. You can also edit column names which do not change the names of the columns in the underlying tables. The tables and columns can be hidden from the work area when reporting on these tables. The relationship view gives a bird's eye view of the connections between these tables. Here you can add or delete relationships, change primary relationships between two tables, or create new hierarchies within a table. There are also options for hiding the columns and/or tables just like in the table view. The grid view has a set of properties. Among them are editing the data source, which is the table, view, or query used to create the table tab. It will look familiar to the Import Tables option. Changing the data source enables you to add or remove columns and even add a where clause in this interface. You can add additional columns by using the computed column feature. This works like Excel, except you use DAX, the Data Analysis Expression Language. They say if you are familiar with creating computed columns in Excel or in cells in Excel, you should not have a problem adopting to DAX. The tab for a fact table is where you can create simple and complicated measures. Here, you place the cursor in a blank area below a column. Then you can go to the toolbar summation button and pick an aggregation function like sum or count of sales. This will create a new measure for internet sales. So let's look at a demonstration and using the table view. We'll open up SQL Server Data Tools, either from an icon or your Start programs. File, Open from a previously created project. This is our tabular project called AdventureWorks DW14. Once it is open, we can look at the Solution Explorer and make sure our model is open. It is open in the table view right now. Let's go to the Product Category tab. And then let's look at the properties, and we'll pin that down for now and look at the data source, click to edit, and click the ellipse button. Here we're looking at the table or view or query used to create this tab. You'll notice that Product Category Alternate Key has been deselected. If we need to add it back, we can click here. Also, there's the filter. We can tell it to filter just on alternate key 1. We can also click a clear rows filter to return back to everything being selected. In the upper right, there's a table preview or a query editor. Here, we can add additional information to the query. We could even put a from clause in here if we would like to. So I'm going to copy the category key, and I can say where category key is greater than 3. And if I wanted to test that, there's a validate button. It says my SQL statement is validated, or I could even go to the design button, which shows me an opened up version of the query. Here I can import other data. Currently we're editing as text, and you can even change this command to a store procedure to return the data. After you make a change in here, say we remove the where clause, we have an execute button to run it. We can see the results and click OK. We'll click the cancel button not to change anything for now. Next, we're going to open up the Customer tab, and we're going to pin down the properties. Here, we're going to add a computed column to the customer table. In order to do this, we have to scroll all the way to the right, and we'll see the last column says Add Column. And then above it is a function area where we can write this function. Here we'll type the equal sign, and we're going to look for the column last name. If you hit a bracket, it's going to list all the columns in this particular table. We're going to start typing last and then tab to select last name. Then we're going to concatenate a comma with a space. I'm going to need a double quote there. Another concatenation, and then we hit a bracket for first name. If we hit the enter key, you'll see that column is going to be calculated with the customer's last name, comma, first name. We can also right click on the header and rename it to be full name. Now, if we were looking at a column in a different table, when we concatenate it, what we have to do is start with a single quote. The single quote will give us a list of the tables, and then under that, the columns in that table. We'll not do that for now, and we'll keep with our full name as a computed column. Next, we'll go to the Internet Sales Fact table, and we'll look to create some measures. Here, we'll scroll to the right till we see sales amount. We'll go to the bottom area, which is the work area for each table, and we'll just click in the first column or cell below sales amount. In the toolbar, there's a summation button that lets you pick an aggregation. We're going to click sum, and it's going to automatically create that measure for us. What we can do here is we can change the name. We'll call this Internet Sales. And hit the enter key, and now we have a new name. We could do the same thing for order quantity. Go to summation and sum, and now we have our internet order quantity. I'm going to click in the cell below internet order quantity, go back to the summation button, and click average. Here I can get the average size of an order. As you can see, the simple aggregations are very easy to add. They do not have to be under the column that you're creating the measure, but it's a good idea for the visualization of it. Before we finish this demonstration, we're going to look at what we've done in Excel. We'll go to the Model menu choice and Analyze in Excel. It'll ask us about the security. We'll keep the defaults and click OK. Once Excel comes up, you'll see in the top of the pivot table options the measures that we created. We'll click on Internet Sales, and then we'll select some attributes like full name. If we don't want the full name in there, we can scroll down and maybe pick a year, like calendar year for rows. Then we'll put the calendar quarter for columns. And now we can see a pivot table of quarter by year of internet sales. Let's talk about the relationship view or diagram view. This view has two main options. One is to create and edit relationships, and two, to create or edit hierarchies. The relationships are a simple drag and drop or a right-click menu choice. One side of the relationship will need to be a primary key of the table. The column needs to provide uniqueness to the one side of a one-to-many relationship. The interface is smart enough to know which side is the one and the many by that primary key. If you try to go in the incorrect direction, it will correct it for you. The hierarchy is a way to help the end user with the flow of data between those attributes of a dimension. It also assists the end user to know which order the attributes need to be displayed. When there is more than one possible relationship between a dimension and a fact, this is called a role-playing dimension. In this example, the fact internet sales has 3 dates: order, ship, and due. One relationship has to be flagged as active. In this example, it is order date. The hierarchy need in the date dimension is year, quarter, month, and then date. It'll be simply named Y-Q-M-D. The abbreviation is easily understood by the end user, or it can be explained in documentation or training. The display options can help clean up this diagram view. Say, for instance, there are no KPIs. You can remove that from the display by unchecking that option. And always remember, there are properties to almost every object in a tabular model. Now let's look at a demonstration of the relationship or diagram view. First, we'll open up SQL Server Data Tools. We have an icon on our desktop for this, or you can go to the Start Programs. Next, we'll open up a previously created project. This one is for our tabular module, and we'll open up the solution AdventureWorks DW14. It'll open up in the grid view, but in the lower right, we'll click Diagram View. Here is our diagram of the tables and their relationships. We could zoom in a little to get a little more clarity of what is in these relationships. First, we'll delete a relationship like sales territory key, and then we'll add it back. And what we'll see is no matter which way we drag the relationship, it knows which side is the one and which side is the many. And it's basing this based on the primary key or the key of the table. So our sales territory is related to internet sales by sales territory key. Next, we'll create a hierarchy, and we'll do this in the date dimension. Make the date dimension a little bit larger so we can see it, and I'm going to right click on calendar year to create a new hierarchy. It'll prompt me for a name, and I'll call this calendar date. But an easier way to reference this hierarchy would be something like Y-Q-M-D for year, quarter, month, date. We can also rename a column in the hierarchy. Here we'll take the calendar off a calendar year, and you'll notice it does not change the calendar year attribute in the date dimension. To add additional columns, we can right click on them like calendar quarter, say add to our hierarchy. We can go to English month name, add to our hierarchy, and then full date alternate key to add as the date. And then again, we can right click these values and rename them. This will be quarter. This will be month. And the last one will be date. And now we have a hierarchy created in our date dimension. If we didn't want the calendar quarter visible anywhere else, we could right click on that attribute and hide from Client Tool. Now that attribute is hidden, but the quarter in the hierarchy is not. The last thing we're going to do is look at the relationship between it and the fact table. You will see that order date key, if we right click on it, it's actually marked as active, so the option here is to mark as inactive. There can only be one active relationship between a dimension and a fact. We can inactivate this one and then activate another one. If we inactivate it through this submenu by right-clicking, if we double-click a relationship, there's an active checkbox as well. Let's return it back to the order date as our active relationship.